What? Have I got something on my face? I love it when inspiration takes you by surprise. And I was browsing through the internet the other night looking at looking for images that I could translate into an art journal page or a project for the 7 days of Christmas. And I came across a photograph of an art canvas that somebody had created from a photograph to hang on the wall. So this was a commercial piece of art that had been done from a photograph, and I thought it would make an absolutely fantastic art journal page if I could reproduce it. So this is the image that I found, or I saw on the internet, and I'm going to show you how I turn that into an art journal page, and I'll join with you again at the end. So I'm working in my black 8x8 Dylusions journal because of the dark pages. It's going to make life so much easier to create this art journal page. I'm using titanium white acrylic paint, and the stencil that I'm going to be using today is the BIRCH stencil from Tim Holtz. Now, I'm not sure whether this is a new one this year or not. I could be wrong. So to apply the acrylic paint through the stencil, I'm going to use a cosmetic sponge that I just picked up from my local pharmacy. So as you can see, I'm just using light dabbing motions to apply the paint through the stencil because I want a kind of mottled effect. I don't want a complete stark white, total opaque effect on the black paper. I want there to be a kind of mottled hazy background. So you'll see what I mean when I remove the stencil after doing the first pass. I'm repositioning the stencil so that I get a continuous pattern right the way across. So I'm just lining up the edge of the trees from one side to the other. And I'm just going to replenish the paint, and I'm going to repeat the process with the cosmetic sponge until I've actually completely covered the entire length of the page. So I'm happy with the way the page is looking at the moment, so I just want to give it a quick heat blast just to make sure it's all nice and dry before I start my next step. So I've grabbed my Mars Black acrylic paint from REEVES. I'm just going to put a small daub on my craft mat, which I'm going to mix in with the remaining white acrylic paint that I've already used to create a kind of light grey colour. So here I'm just repositioning the stencil and I'm just putting it back in the same place but moving it up to the top of the page, and then with that grey paint I'm just going to pass through the stencil and then kind of blend the top into the main body so that I've got a kind of darker frame at the top. I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom as well. So I'm just going to continue to move the stencil on and then add that grey paint so that it blends into the main body of the white. So I'm happy with the top. Now I'm just going to position the stencil at the bottom and then just repeat the same process across the bottom section of the page. And now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to give that a quick blast with the heat gun to make sure it's all nice and dry before moving on. So at this stage, I'm not very happy with the fact that there is a kind of black edge to the page. So I'm just going to go back in with the remaining paint and with that remaining white and just put a little bit more of the paint down the far left-hand side of my art journal page, just to kind of bring the page right the way into the join of the crook of the page. And as you can see, that now blends in a lot better right the way up to the end of the page. So time for another quick heat blast just to make sure it's all nice and dry before I add my focal point. So this is the STAG photopolymer stamp from DOCRAFTS, which I've already used in an art journal page once before. And I'm also going to be using the Carnation Red archival ink from Ranger, and I'm going to ink up my STAG stamp with that Carnation Red, which is really going to give it a very, very vivid pop of colour. And it's at this stage, if the page was going to go wrong, this is exactly where it's going to go wrong. Now I'm hoping that the red ink isn't as dark as the black paper of the page, so that when I position my STAG on the page, where the red touches the black, it will disappear completely and it will look as though the STAG is behind the trees. And I'm happy to say that it worked. As you can imagine, there was a definite sigh of relief that happened when that stamp worked. So just want to give it a quick dry because it is archival ink and does need a bit of encouragement, and then it's time to move on. For the next step, I wanted to give the impression that there was frost on the ground and on the trees. So the way to do this is to get some diamond stickles from Ranger and a small brush, and then just paint on the glitter glue onto the bottom of the page where I want the frost to be on the ground. Now obviously with it being glitter, you're not really going to be able to see it until I start to tilt the page. So once I've got a fair amount of the glitter on there, I will tilt it so you can see it catching the light. And as if by magic, the sparkle appears. To continue on that frosty look, I also want to add some of those stickles up into the trees and on the branches where the frost would gather. And of course the hardest part of adding any kind of bling to any page is just knowing when to stop, or not. So once I've finished adding the stickles, I'm going to leave the page to dry for about half an hour or so, because I never like to heat set stickles because you just never know whether it's going to burn or not, or whether the mica in the glue is actually going to burn out. So I never use a heat gun on glitter. So I'm going to put it to one side and then I'll come back to it once it's dry. Now it's time to add the title of my page, so I'm just going to use a football pen and I'm just going to write in between the gaps of the trees. So all I'm going to do is just to write in my title by hand. I'm not going to use my label maker this time. I decided to do some hand lettering. And I think that's it. I'm going to call this page complete. It's as near as I'm going to get it to that original photograph that I saw. So all I need to do now is just with my white rollerball pen from SIGNO just to sign and date it. I have got some close-up photographs that I'll show you of the page at the end. So sometimes you can see a photograph that you like the look of, and then if you can reproduce that as an art journal page in a different medium, then absolutely fine to do it. It's your art journal, remember. It doesn't matter what you put in those pages if you enjoy doing it, and that's what it's all about. It's all about giving yourself joy. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share the video with all your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. And I'll be back again tomorrow with another project. Bye for now.